Jaguar is making a huge mistake with its rebrand. Or is it? Let's dive into it. Jaguar have just unveiled their rebrand and people are upset about it. It's made national news, it was all over LinkedIn, all over Twitter. People have a lot of opinions about it. So let's break down what they've done, what I think of it. Now, to caveat, I haven't worked with Jaguar and I haven't talked to anyone who works at Jaguar. This is just my personal opinion based on my branding expertise. I have created brands from scratch for people in the past and rebranded businesses. So I know what it takes to rebrand. If you don't know me, my name's Emily and I'm the founder of Two Shoes Creative. We are a brand and website design agency specialising in working with businesses and charities that are making an impact. What I don't know about, and I'm going to be honest with you, is cars. I am not a car person and I don't really have any emotional attachment to Jaguar or for any car brand for that matter. So I'm kind of impartial when it comes to that side of things. This will be a somewhat logical rather than emotional review on the Jaguar rebrand. So in this video, I'm going to cover 5 things. I'm going to talk about why Jaguar might have wanted to rebrand, look at the visuals that they presented and what I think of them, the go woke and go broke kind of reporting that's been going on around this rebrand, why it's important to take risks when it comes to branding your business, and lastly, just my final thoughts on the matter. But let's dive straight in. Why have Jaguar chosen to rebrand? In my recent video, When Is It Time to Rebrand, I talked about all the different reasons that you might want to rebrand your business or organisation. And broadly, it is for these 5 reasons. Firstly, your business name needs changing. Secondly, your industry is changing. Thirdly, your product offering is changing. Fourthly, your target audience is changing. And fifth, your branding wasn't done professionally in the first place. So we can eliminate the first and the last of these. So let's look at this rebrand framed under these 3 reasons. Firstly, a reason you might want to rebrand is when your industry is evolving. And the car industry is definitely always evolving and it's going through massive changes at the moment. The car industry is going downhill a little bit. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders shows us the figures of private new car registrations. So from 2014 through to 2017, new car registrations were over 600,000. This dropped in 2018 to 487,000 roughly, and in 2019 dropped ever so slightly to 468,000. So new car registrations were starting to go down in 2018 and 19. Now in 2020, the figures dropped massively. We can say due to the pandemic, and it never really recovered from that. So in 2020, there were 314,000 new car registrations. In 2021, 410,000, 2022, 428,000, 2023, 435,000. So it hasn't really recovered to pre-pandemic levels. So the car industry is probably getting a little bit worried that car sales are going down, their profits will be going down, and they need to make big changes to lift up their sales because it's going to be a lot more competitive if less people are buying cars. And Jaguar is no exception. According to goodcarbadcar.net, their market share has been decreasing year on year from 2019 through to 2022. So as well as the industry having a problem, Jaguar also have a problem with car sales. So this really sets the scene here in terms of one reason to rebrand. If your industry is changing and if the industry sales are going down in general, that means things are going to be a lot more competitive and you need to do something really radical to stand out. And if you've been doing the same thing over and over again for years and years and it's not working, it's definitely time for a change. Not only that, with car sales going down in the industry is also changing for a different reason, and that is to do with countries all over the world setting targets to increase the number of zero-emission vehicles. In the UK specifically, there's big pressure on car manufacturers to go fully electric, with a law saying that 80% of new cars and 70% of new vans sold in Great Britain will be zero-emission by 2030, and that increases to 100% by 2035. So all of these car manufacturers are on the way to becoming fully electric. So this leads me on nicely to the second reason why companies might want to rebrand, and that is because you're changing your products. Jaguar, like a lot of brands, will have to change the way it makes cars. So Jaguar announced that from November 2024 through till 2026, they will stop selling cars. And that's quite a bold move for a car manufacturer. All the other car manufacturers are kind of developing electric vehicles alongside their current vehicles. So for example, VW Golf, you can buy it in petrol, you can buy it in electric, and a lot of car brands are doing that. Ford recently announced that it was reinventing the Capri and made it fully electric, which to be honest did not have a good reception in the UK. So different brands are doing different things when it comes to going electric. Jaguar is quite unique in the fact that they have just stopped manufacturing cars. They're going away for a couple of years and they're going to come back with their all electric vehicles. So yeah, that is the perfect time for a rebrand. You're going to go away, change your products, and then come back with a bang. So the industry is changing. Jaguar is adapting to the industry change and they're developing a new suite of products. Two really good reasons to rebrand. This leads us on nicely to the third reason why they might want to rebrand, and that is a change in target audience. So when the industry is changing and your product is changing, it's almost guaranteed that your target audience is probably changing. Now, if we have a look at some stats from Ward's Intelligence, which have been analysed by Green Car Congress, they said that middle-aged persons purchased proportionately fewer vehicles in 2017 than in 2007, and older persons purchased proportionately more vehicles from 2017 than in 2007. Interestingly, in 2007, the majority of car buyers were between the ages of 35 and 54, but in 2017, the majority were aged 55 and older. Obviously, this is 2017, a lot might have changed since then, but in general, it can be assumed that it's the older people that are buying more cars than younger people buying more new cars. With Jaguar going fully electric, it's not just about who's buying cars, but it's about the attitude from people about what kind of cars they're going to buy. So according to the NFDA's latest consumer attitude survey, in the 17 to 25 age group, 81% would consider an EV versus the 76 plus age group, only 45% of people said that they would consider an EV. So obviously that's quite a difference in age group, but we can assume that younger people are more open to EVs than older people. So even though older people might be buying more cars, young people are more open to buying electric cars. Now, here's the thing. Most brands are always chasing the younger demographic, mostly the fact that they want to capture people young so that they become brand loyal, right, for the rest of their lifetime. So brands are always trying to pitch younger. And when we look at the visuals later and we look at the reaction to the visuals, we can see that Jaguar are trying to appeal to a younger age group. Now, people have said this is odd for Jaguar because they quite highly priced cars compared to the rest of the market. So one would assume that only older people could afford them, but that's quite a short-term strategy. So I think by aiming more at younger people, they're kind of hedging their bets that they will become brand loyal and eventually buy a Jaguar, rather than trying to still appeal to the same older demographic that they are currently. I say that because in the UK, Jaguar is seen as kind of an old man's brand. And I don't mean that as an offence, but it's seen as like a classic British institution. And if we have a look at the reporting around the Jaguar rebrand, a lot of people are talking about their dads, their granddads, how they owned a Jaguar or they wanted to own a Jaguar, and just generally talking about the Jaguar brand with a sense of nostalgia. Nostalgia is great, but it'll only work for so long before all the people that feel nostalgic about Jaguar aren't around anymore. So it's not really a long-term strategy to play on nostalgia in that way. So I think what Jaguar are trying to do is really bring their demographic all the way back down to younger people so that they will turn those into those lifelong Jaguar fans. The moment you've been waiting for, let's dive into the actual visuals of the rebrand. So Jaguar released a logo, a couple of visuals of the brand identity and a promo video. But before we talk about them, I want to talk about the JLR Reimagine strategy. So Jaguar is part of Jaguar Land Rover, which is owned by Tata Motors. And in 2021, they announced their JLR Reimagine strategy. You can see it on the Jaguar Land Rover site, and there's also on the Tata Motors site a strategic roadmap for the brands. So these documents kind of outline the brand strategy for the larger company and for Jaguar specifically. So let me read you a little bit about it. With Reimagine, we will transform Jaguar Land Rover with a value creation approach, delivering quality and profit over volume. We will deliver a new benchmark in environmental, societal, and community impact for a luxury business, creating the world's most desirable luxury vehicles against a canvas of true sustainability. One of the key phrases they have in these documents is the phrase, sustainability-rich reimagination of modern luxury. Quite a mouthful, but I think that kind of encompasses what they're trying to achieve with this brand strategy. They are still a luxury brand. They are focusing fully on sustainability, and the words kind of reimagination are showing that they're trying to do it in a completely different way to probably what other car manufacturers are doing. So under that lens, let's then review the visuals for the brand. Firstly, Jaguar revealed a new logo, which is getting quite a lot of criticism. Firstly, because in the way that they've presented the logo, it doesn't have the Jaguar motif anymore. And this is quite a trend for the luxury industry in general. Not in cars specifically, but in the luxury brand arena. A lot of luxury brands are moving away from having a kind of ornate icon and ornate typography to going completely minimal and going text only. We've seen it with a lot of different brands. So this isn't a shock to me in that sense, because this is the way that a lot of luxury brands have been going. I personally think that this does mean that brands are losing their personalities a little bit. Losing these iconic icons and the iconic kind of typography is a little bit of a shame when it comes to the visuals. Saying that, the way that Jaguar has done their typography is a little bit different, I would say, to the kind of standard logo type that we've been seeing. However, a lot of people have pointed out that they don't necessarily think the A's look like A's and they look like O's. So there's a little bit of criticism around the kind of typeface choice that they've had. So yeah, there's been a little bit of criticism around the actual logo, but the majority of it is around them losing the Jaguar. Now, I don't think they're losing the Jaguar completely, because in a couple of the shots that I've seen in press releases, they still have the Jaguar. It's just in a different kind of way. And it's hard to tell how they're going to use that Jaguar going forward. There was also a video of what we can assume is going to be the new badge for the Jaguars. And yeah, it doesn't have a Jaguar on it. And I'm in two minds about this, really. When it comes to car branding, they're doing their advertising on the actual cars. So having a recognizable logo for the cars, I think, is really important. There are so many different car badges out there, and I think the ones that do have some kind of non-type based icon, like the Jaguar, do stand out a little bit more. If this was the car badge, I would say it was a little bit of a shame that it didn't still include the Jaguar, but we don't know if it is for sure. And I can't imagine that they're going to be saying goodbye to the Jaguar on their cars completely. I'd be really shocked if they did. Let's talk about the messaging. So across the website and across the promo video, which we'll talk about later, Jaguar is making some pretty bold statements. So one of the main statements it's making is copy nothing. Then it has other little short phrases like champion originality, challenge convention, inspire like no other. These are quite lofty and aspirational messages, and they are really alluding to the fact that Jaguar are doing something completely different. I think it's building up that anticipation and that excitement about what their new product's going to be like. Maybe it's quite risky messaging, because if you're coming out and saying that you're not copying anybody and you're challenging the norm and you are creating something completely original, instantly people are going to try and compare you to other brands, other cars, and tell you that you're wrong. So it's quite ambitious in that sense and a little bit risky. I don't think there's anything wrong with this messaging. It's a little bit abstract and very aspirational. It doesn't tell us the nitty-gritty of what's happening with the brand. But like I said before, with the logo and the visual identity, this is just the first stage. I'm sure we will get more details and more evidence around this messaging. Next, let's talk about the promo video. Jaguar released a 30-second promo video for the rebrand. It was a abstract, futuristic, bright, like artsy video, I would say. And one of the main questions that people were commenting on it was, but where are the cars? There was no cars in the ad, just people, and nothing that really alluded to cars at all. And I think it was a pretty clever move from Jaguar, posting that, knowing that people are going to ask about the cars, and then they can start to build up the anticipation and the excitement of the cars. They're not selling new cars until 2026, so they've got quite a long time to reveal the cars. And when it comes to the car industry in general, the kind of big reveal of new car models is quite a big thing, and the marketing strategy around that of kind of like teasing people as you go. So I think that's just the first part of that. I think not having a car in the ad was a good move because it got attention from that aspect. And this isn't showcasing their new products, it's just showcasing their new brand before we see the products. So I don't think it's a particularly odd move. Another criticism of the ad was that it looked more like a fashion ad than it did look like a car ad. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a big problem. There's a big connection between cars and fashion. People choose cars to match their personal style. A lot of people care about the way a car looks and not just about the functionality of it. So yeah, I don't think it is a weird move for a car brand to appear more fashiony, because the kind of people that are buying Jaguar's car are probably buying luxury fashion as well. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily as weird a move as people are making out. Leading on from that, the advert is quite artsy, and again, cars are an art. And let's say fashion is very closely aligned with art. So I don't think that the video being artsy and fashion-y is necessarily a problem. I think it's quite a bold move, and yeah, I think it's quite interesting and fun. Now, that was not the only criticism of the ad. And that leads me on to my next point, which is about Jaguar going woke. It's frustrating to me that people have seen a 30-second promo clip that includes people who aren't white and aren't dressing heteronormatively, and instantly the backlash is over the brand going woke, and that's a bad thing. An inclusive world is a successful world. We should be inclusive, and brands should be inclusive, and businesses should be inclusive. So if woke means inclusive, then I think a brand going woke is not a bad thing at all. Now, articles that are reporting on Jaguar going woke and how this is a bad thing and it's going to destroy their brand are skirting around the subject that they actually want to talk about. They're talking about it pandering to Gen Z. They're talking about how it looks more like a fashion ad. They're like saying they don't like the clothes people are wearing. Fine. But ultimately, what these articles are trying to allude to is the fact that they don't like seeing people on their screens that aren't white and heteronormative, and it's ridiculous. Now, there is one article that got awfully close to saying what they actually wanted to say, and that was from the Daily Mail, where they did a feature about one of the people who'd helped create the ad. And let me just read part of the headline. But they said, the mastermind behind Jaguar's woke rebrand, and they mentioned that he was BLM supporting and that he was gay. So it's just really frustrating to see the British press reporting in this way, and it's irrelevant. Nigel Farage even came out and did a video about how much he disliked the rebrand. So I think if Nigel Farage doesn't like what you're doing, you're probably doing something right. And of course, the cesspit that was the Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, comments, were people being openly racist, homophobic, and transphobic about the ad. Inclusive society is a successful society. We should all be moving to being as inclusive as possible, whether that's as individuals or as businesses. And businesses have a big responsibility to be inclusive. And it's also disappointing to people say that that's the reason that Jaguar is going to fail, because by being woke, they're going to alienate their older audience. And that is assuming that all of their older audience are racist and homophobic, which is also ridiculous in itself. So yeah, this kind of go woke and go broke messaging that is being kind of pandered in the media, I think it's pretty ridiculous off of the watching of a 30-second promo video. I did a previous video about brand values where I talked about how brands need to stand for something to be successful, and being inclusive is something that you should stand for. But it's not just about the way that you openly show yourself. So for example, by Jaguar moving to be more inclusive, that's great, showing it on the outside, but ultimately they need to be doing it internally as well. So I'm sure there are brands out there that have gone woke and then gone broke, but I would argue that maybe the reason they did go broke is because they weren't practicing what they preached. You can have a shiny, amazing looking brand on the outside, but if your company culture doesn't reflect that, then you are not going to do well. So yeah, I don't think it's go woke, go broke. I think it's if you pretend to go woke, you'll go broke. And of course, if you're a brand that is championing homophobia, racism, transphobia, then you are going to go broke because it's not right. And the world should be moving to be more inclusive. So let me step down from my soapbox and move on to the next point, which is about brands taking risks. So taking risks in business in general can lead to big rewards, and taking risks with your branding and really pinpointing your target audience to the point where you might be putting other people off is a risk that can really pay off. And I think that's what Jaguar has done. They've taken a massive risk in their branding to appeal to a different audience to what they usually do. And I think it's probably going to pay off for them. They are talking about driving innovation in the industry, and they're one of the first of the legacy brands to do something as radical as this. And I think the proof will be in 5, 10, 15 years' time, all the other car brands do. And if they end up copying what Jaguar have done. Rebranding always comes with a risk. People don't like change, and if you've got good brand recognition and you change the way you look, you kind of lower your brand recognition until it builds itself back up again. But rebranding for most businesses is inevitable. So if you are changing your position in the market or your products, it's something you have to do. So that leads me on to my final thoughts about this rebrand. As I said before, I'm not really a car person, so I don't have an emotional attachment to Jaguar per se. And I find this rebrand really interesting, and I think it's a really bold move, and ultimately I think it's going to be successful for them. I understand why there has been backlash. People build up emotional attachments to brands they like, and they almost develop like a parasocial relationship with the brand. So when a brand does something completely different, seemingly out of the blue, I can understand why people find that a bit jarring. They have moved from this kind of old school, legacy, suave, British persona to a more modern luxury. And a lot of luxury brands have been doing this, still playing into their history, but rebranding to a much more modern, bold feel. The old brand was nostalgic and the new one is futuristic. And by being futuristic, you're being a bit unusual and you're kind of going into the unknown. So I can see why people are apprehensive about it. But at the end of the day, brands don't owe you anything and businesses just want to make money. Jaguar just wants to sell more cars, so they are chasing the audience that they think are going to spend more money with them. And unfortunately, if you don't like this campaign, that means that they don't want you as their audience anymore. And I think, yeah, that can be pretty upsetting probably for people who have followed the Jaguar brand for a long while. But at the end of the day, Jaguar are going where they think the money is, and to be honest, I think they're going to succeed. I think it's always good to be the first in your industry to do something radical like this, because anyone that follows now, it will be like they're following Jaguar. So they are kind of positioning themselves as the leader when it comes to modern luxury cars. I'm interested to see how this pans out in the next year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, to see firstly where Jaguar go and then where all the other car brands go. Are they gonna go for that more modern luxury feel like Jaguar, or are they gonna still continue to play on nostalgia? Ultimately, the success will be in the figures, in the car sales, in the market share. So yeah, it'll be interesting to report back on this in a few years' time and see how they're doing post 2026 when they have released their new cars. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different style video from me. I just really wanted to deep dive into Jaguar and do a bit of research into them specifically in the car industry, as well as review the visuals that they presented to us. If you like this video, you can go back on my channel and watch my other videos exploring how your brand can make a bigger impact. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss the next video. If you run a business or a charity who's thinking about rebranding, then get in touch with me, Emily at Two Shoes Creative. You can visit the link in the description to book a free 30-minute intro call with me where we can talk about your brand, whether it's time to rebrand and what's the best way of going about it.